The wallet contained $3,000 in cash, 5 platinum credit cards, and one photograph that 17-year-old Malik Johnson wasn't supposed to see. When he returned the wallet to billionaire Harrison Montgomery, neither of them knew that this simple act of honesty would uncover a 20-year-old secret that would rewrite both of their life stories. But to understand how a crumpled photograph would change everything, we need to start at the beginning. At 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, when Malik Johnson was running late for his shift at Morrison's grocery and spotted something that would test every principle his grandmother had ever taught him. Malik was sprinting down the steps of the Lenox Square MARTA station when he saw it, an expensive brown leather wallet, partially hidden under a discarded newspaper on the bench. Most people would have walked past it, assuming someone else would deal with it, or that it was probably empty anyway. But Malik's grandmother had raised him differently. Integrity, she always said, is what you do when nobody's watching. It's who you are when there's no reward for being good. Malik glanced around the crowded subway platform. Evening commuters streamed past, everyone focused on their phones or their destinations, no one paying attention to the wallet or to him. He could easily have walked away. Should have walked away considering he was already 20 minutes late for work and his supervisor, Ms. Chen, had warned him about punctuality just last week. But something about leaving the wallet there felt wrong. Malik picked it up, feeling the weight of expensive leather in his hands. The wallet was clearly expensive, the kind that cost more than his family spent on groceries in a month. He opened it, planning to look for some identification so he could turn it in to MARTA security. That's when he saw the money, more cash than Malik had ever seen in one place. Crisp $100 bills, neatly arranged, filling every slot in the wallet. His hands trembled slightly as he counted. $3,000. Exactly. For a 17-year-old whose family was 3 months behind on rent, whose little sister needed new school clothes, whose grandmother's diabetes medication cost more each month than his part-time job at the grocery store paid, $3,000 wasn't just money. It was salvation. Malik closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about his grandmother lying in the hospital bed where she'd been for the past week. The doctors said she needed surgery, but their insurance wouldn't cover it all. The bills were piling up. His mother worked 2 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. His father had left when Malik was 12, leaving behind only promises and unpaid debts. $3,000 would change everything. Pay the rent, buy Keisha's school clothes, help with grandma's medical bills. All he had to do was walk away, and no one would ever know. But then he heard his grandmother's voice in his head, as clearly as if she were standing next to him on the platform. Money that isn't yours will never bring you peace, baby. It'll eat at your soul until there's nothing good left. Malik opened the wallet again, this time looking for identification. Behind the cash he found 5 credit cards, all platinum, all bearing the name Harrison Montgomery. The address was in Buckhead, Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood. But it was what he found tucked behind the credit cards that made him freeze. A photograph, old and slightly faded, showing a young black woman holding a baby. The woman was beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. On the back of the photo, someone had written in careful handwriting, "My beautiful Maria and our precious boy, May 9." Malik stared at the photograph, his mind racing. Why would a billionaire named Harrison Montgomery be carrying a 20-year-old photo of a black woman and her baby? And why was it hidden behind his credit cards, like a secret he didn't want anyone to discover? The approaching train snapped Malik out of his thoughts. He quickly put the photo back where he'd found it, closed the wallet, and made a decision that would change his life forever. He was going to return this wallet, money and all, to Harrison Montgomery. And maybe, just maybe, he'd get some answers about the mysterious photograph. 2 hours later, Malik stood at the gates of the most impressive mansion he'd ever seen. The Montgomery estate sprawled across several acres in Buckhead, with manicured gardens, a circular driveway, and security cameras that had probably been tracking his approach since he got off the bus 6 blocks away. He had called in sick to work, knowing that Miss Chen would probably fire him for the no-show. But something about the photograph had compelled him to make this journey across the city. He needed to return the wallet in person, needed to see the man who carried such a secret. The security guard at the gate had been skeptical when Malik explained why he was there. A 17-year-old black kid from East Atlanta claiming to have found Harrison Montgomery's wallet. It sounded like the beginning of a scam, but when Malik showed him the wallet and the ID inside, the guard's attitude changed. He made a phone call, spoke in hushed tones, then waved Malik through with instructions to go to the front door. The mansion was even more intimidating up close. Marble columns, crystal windows, landscaping that probably cost more than most people's houses. Malik had grown up in a small apartment where 3 generations shared 2 bedrooms. This single house could have held 20 families like his. He rang the doorbell and waited, clutching the wallet in his sweaty palm. Through the frosted glass he could see a figure approaching. The door opened to reveal a tall, distinguished white man in his 60s, with silver hair and sharp blue eyes that immediately focused on Malik with suspicion. "You're the boy who claims to have my wallet?" Harrison Montgomery's voice was cold, formal, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Yes, sir," Malik replied, holding out the wallet. "I found it at the MARTA station. I wanted to make sure you got it back." Harrison took the wallet without a word, immediately opening it to check the contents. His fingers moved quickly through the cash, counting. His face showed no emotion as he verified that his credit cards were all there. But when his fingers found the photograph tucked behind the cards, Malik saw something flicker across his expression: surprise and perhaps fear. "Everything appears to be here," Harrison said stiffly, though his eyes remained on Malik with continued suspicion. "I suppose you expect some kind of reward." The comment stung. Malik had traveled 2 hours across the city, missed work, and returned thousands of dollars that could have solved his family's problems, and this man was treating him like a criminal looking for a handout. "No, sir," Malik replied quietly. "I just wanted to do the right thing." Harrison studied him for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether this was some elaborate con game. "What's your name?" "Malik Johnson." "And where exactly did you find my wallet, Mr. Johnson?" "Lenox Square, MARTA station, sir. It was on a bench, under a newspaper." Harrison nodded slowly, but his expression remained guarded. "Well, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your honesty. You can go now." He started to close the door, but Malik didn't move. There was something about the photograph, something about the way Harrison had reacted when he saw it, that kept him rooted to the spot. "Sir?" Malik said hesitantly. "Can I ask you something?" Harrison's eyes narrowed. "What?" "The photograph in your wallet. The woman and the baby. Who are they?" The color drained from Harrison's face. For a moment the confident billionaire seemed to shrink, looking older and more vulnerable than his years. "I don't know what you're talking about." But Malik had seen the recognition in his eyes, the way his hand had trembled slightly when he touched the photograph. "Her name was Maria, wasn't it? And the baby, that was in 1987. Harrison stepped backward, his hand gripping the doorframe. What do you want?" "I want to know why a billionaire is carrying a 20-year-old picture of a black woman and her baby," Malik said, surprised by his own boldness. "And I want to know if that baby grew up wondering why his father never came looking for him." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Harrison's face went through a series of emotions: shock, denial, fear, and finally something that might have been recognition. "What did you say your name was?" Harrison whispered. "Malik Johnson. My mother's name is Keisha Johnson, but before she married my stepfather, her name was Keisha Williams. And before that," Malik took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "Before that," she said, "her mother's name was Maria Williams. Maria died when my mom was just a baby, and my mom grew up in foster care, never knowing anything about her father except that he was a wealthy white man who abandoned them." Harrison Montgomery, one of the most powerful men in Atlanta, slowly sank into the chair beside his front door. His hands shook as he pulled the photograph from his wallet and stared at it, as if seeing it for the first time in years. "Maria," he whispered, "my beautiful Maria." 20 years of questions suddenly began to make sense. Why Malik had always felt like he didn't quite fit anywhere. Why his mother had always seemed sad when she talked about family. Why there were never any relatives at Christmas or birthdays, just his mom, his grandmother, and him. But what Harrison was about to reveal would be more shocking than Malik could ever imagine. The truth about why his family had been separated for decades, why his mother grew up in foster care, and why this billionaire had been carrying his great-grandmother's photo for 20 years, was about to change everything. "She was the love of my life," Harrison said quietly, his voice breaking. "Maria Williams. I was 25, fresh out of business school, working at my father's company. She was a secretary there, putting herself through nursing school at night. We fell in love, but what?" Malik asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. "But my father found out, threatened to cut me off, disown me, destroy her career. This was 1986, Mr. Johnson. Interracial relationships weren't accepted, especially not in my family's social circle. My father gave me an ultimatum: end it with Maria or lose everything." Harrison's hands were shaking now, the photograph trembling between his fingers. "I was young and stupid, and terrified. I chose the money. I chose the family business. I chose the easy path, and I lost the only woman I ever truly loved." "Did you know about the baby?" Malik asked, though his voice was barely above a whisper. "Not until it was too late. By the time I found out Maria was pregnant, she had already left Atlanta. My father had her fired, made sure she couldn't find work anywhere in the city. I hired private investigators to find her." But Harrison looked up at Malik, tears streaming down his face. "She died in childbirth, didn't she? Maria died, and I never got to tell her I was sorry. Never got to tell her I spent every day for the next 20 years regretting my choice." Malik nodded, his own eyes filling with tears. "Mom said Maria died giving birth to her. She grew up in foster care because there was no family to take her in. She always wondered about her father, wondered why he never came looking for her. Because I didn't know where to look," Harrison said. "And because I was a coward. I told myself that Maria and the baby were better off without me, that I would only bring them pain. But the truth is, I was just too ashamed to face what I had done." They sat in silence for several minutes, grandfather and grandson meeting for the first time, both processing the magnitude of what had just been revealed. Finally, Harrison spoke again. "Your mother, Keisha, is she well?" "She's strong," Malik said. "She works 2 jobs to support us. She married my stepfather when I was 5, but he left a few years ago. She's been struggling ever since, but she never complains. She just works harder." "And you said something about your grandmother being in the hospital." Malik nodded. "Diabetes complications. She needs surgery, but the insurance won't cover all of it. That's why," he gestured toward the wallet, "that's why it was so hard to return the money. We really need it." Harrison was quiet for a long time, studying Malik's face as if memorizing every detail. "You look like her," he said finally, "like Maria. You have her eyes, her expression, when she was thinking about something serious. Grandma always said I had my great-grandmother's eyes." "Your great-grandmother was the wisest woman I ever met," Harrison said with a sad smile. "She's the one who taught me that integrity matters more than wealth. I just forgot that lesson until today." Harrison stood up slowly, as if the weight of 20 years of regret was finally lifting from his shoulders. "Mr. Johnson, Malik, would you be willing to come inside? I think it's time I met my family properly." Over the next several hours, Harrison and Malik talked about everything. Harrison shared stories about Maria, about their brief but intense love affair, about the choice that had haunted him for 2 decades. Malik told him about his mother's struggles, about his grandmother's wisdom, about growing up poor but loved in East Atlanta. "I want to meet her," Harrison said finally. "Your mother. I want to apologize for abandoning her mother, for not being there when she needed a father. I want to try to make amends, if she'll let me." "She might not want to see you," Malik warned. "She's been hurt by a lot of men who promised to be there and then left. I understand. But I have to try. And I want to start by taking care of your grandmother's medical bills. All of them. Surgery, recovery, whatever she needs." Malik felt tears streaming down his face. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. It's 20 years overdue, but I do." And I want to set up college funds for you and for any other grandchildren I might have. I want to make sure your mother never has to work 2 jobs again unless she wants to." "Why?" Malik asked. "I mean, I'm grateful, but why would you do all this for people you just met?" Harrison looked at the photograph again, then at Malik. "Because a 17-year-old boy just taught me more about integrity than I learned in 60 years of business. Because you had $3,000 in your hands and chose to return it instead of keeping it. Because you're Maria's grandson, and that makes you family. And because family takes care of family, even when they've failed them before." 3 weeks later, Malik stood in his grandmother's hospital room, watching her sit up in bed for the first time since her surgery. The operation had been a complete success, paid for by a benefactor she didn't know she had. His mother sat beside the bed, still trying to process everything that had happened since her son found a wallet on a subway platform. "Grandma," Malik said, "there's someone I want you to meet." Harrison Montgomery entered the room hesitantly, wearing a simple sweater and jeans instead of his usual expensive suits. In his hands, he carried a large bouquet of flowers and an envelope. "Mrs. Johnson," he said quietly, "my name is Harrison Montgomery. I knew your daughter Maria many years ago, and I want to apologize for failing her when she needed me most." Malik's grandmother studied Harrison's face with the sharp intelligence that age and wisdom had given her. "You're the boy's grandfather," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes, ma'am." "I am." "And you're the one who paid for my surgery." "Yes, ma'am." She was quiet for a long moment, then gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Sit down, young man. We have some talking to do." Over the next hour, Harrison told Malik's family the same story he had told Malik, about Maria, about his cowardice, about 20 years of regret. He apologized not just for abandoning Maria, but for all the ways his absence had affected Keisha's life and Malik's childhood. "I can't change the past," he said finally, "but I want to be part of this family's future, if you'll have me. I want to be the grandfather and father-in-law I should have been all along." Malik's mother had been quiet through most of the conversation, but now she spoke up. "I used to dream about this," she said quietly. "When I was little, I used to imagine that my father would come looking for me, that he would have some good reason for not being there. I gave up on that dream a long time ago." "I understand if you can't forgive me," Harrison said. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm hoping maybe we can start over, build something new." Keisha looked at her son, then at her mother, then back at Harrison. "Malik returning your wallet wasn't an accident," she said finally. "Mama always said that God works in mysterious ways, that good things come to people who do good things. Maybe this is one of those times." 6 months later, the Johnson family had moved into a house in a better neighborhood, close enough to Harrison's mansion that he could visit regularly but far enough away that they maintained their independence. Malik had enrolled in a private school where his grades quickly earned him recognition from college scouts. His mother had quit one of her jobs and started taking night classes to become a nurse, following in her mother's footsteps. But the most important change wasn't financial. It was the relationship that had grown between a billionaire who had lost his way and the family he had never known he had. Harrison discovered that wealth meant nothing without people to share it with. And the Johnsons learned that family could come from the most unexpected place. "You know what the best part is?" Malik said one evening as he and Harrison walked through the gardens behind the mansion. "It's not the money or the house or the school. It's that Grandma got to meet her son-in-law before she died. She got to see that Maria was loved, that her death wasn't meaningless." Harrison nodded, his eyes bright with tears. "Your grandmother told me something last week that I'll never forget. She said that integrity is like a seed. You plant it not knowing what will grow but trusting that something good will come from it. You planted that seed when you returned my wallet, Malik, and look what grew from it." Malik smiled. "Grandma's always been wise like that. She says that doing the right thing isn't about the reward. It's about being able to sleep at night, knowing you're the person you're supposed to be. She's right, and you're proof that integrity isn't just about returning money. It's about returning people to each other, returning family to where it belongs." As they walked back toward the house where 3 generations of family were gathering for dinner, Malik thought about the choice he had made on that subway platform. He could have kept the money, solved his family's immediate problems, and no one would have been the wiser. But he would have missed something far more valuable than cash: the chance to heal a 20-year-old wound and bring together a family that had been broken by fear and separation. But there's something else you need to know about this story. Something that proves that when you choose integrity over personal gain, the universe has a way of rewarding you beyond your wildest dreams. Because 6 months after that first meeting, Harrison Montgomery didn't just become Malik's grandfather. He became something even more important. Sometimes the most important decisions we make are the ones that seem smallest at the time. Sometimes returning something that isn't ours leads to receiving something we never knew we needed. And sometimes the photograph hidden in a stranger's wallet holds the key to understanding where we come from and where we belong. The wallet that Malik found that day still sits on Harrison's desk, but now it contains a different photograph. One of 4 generations of families standing together, smiling, complete at last. Because sometimes the greatest treasures aren't the ones we find, but the ones we choose to return. This story is dedicated to every young person who has chosen integrity over easy money, to every family separated by circumstances beyond their control, and to everyone who believes that doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, can change the world in ways we never imagined.